everybody, time for another CodePen video. Ooh. CodePen radio on the TV video. You know my intro. It's always confusing. You know, this goes out to our podcast feed, and some people are like, a little confused by that. So, hey, sorry about that, but that's kind of our plan. Sometimes there'll be video, sometimes there'll be audio. We're just having fun with the format. And
it's a surprise.
You know what? The world's gonna have to catch up with us. Gosh dang it. This video is called The Views of CodePen. The views meaning basically this button. We're going to talk about a button on CodePen. So it's me and Steven. Hey, Steven.
Hello.
What's up? Let's look at this button. So I'm in the pen editor here, right? For the moment, as distinguished from the project editor, which also has a button like that. We'll look at that too. And I have a pen that I've created. It doesn't really matter all that much, but it does actually. It matters a little bit. I created this one and I saved it and I'm pro. So that's the kind of state that we're in. So when I open this up, I got the full Monty of choices here. Now there's a few things in here that will keep you right on this page. I can move the code editors around to be positioned on different areas of the page. Maybe you're familiar with that, but that's not changing the URL. Those are just staying right in place. Although I can give you a hot tip right away. I think if I put right at the end of this, it's going to refresh the page with the editors on the right. Can you believe it? So if you really wanted to force that on somebody, it won't stay in the URL, but at least it will load in that way. So there's a hot little tip.
And it'll remember that setting. That gets locked in for you.
Yeah, if I refresh the page, it's going to remember that they're on the top. Yes, indeed it will. Okay, so that's that. The rest of this video is going to be talking about these different URLs that you can go to. You can see that the top one is highlighted now because that's the one that we're on. You can see at the end of this, it says /pen in it. That's just a hint that it's part of the URL. You can see that in the part of the URL here. The way views work on CodePen is that the URLs change to be that particular kind of view. So what do you think? Should we just go down the list?
Yeah. So editor view is the one everybody's familiar with here. You got your code, you got your preview, you got your settings. You can adjust all that kind of stuff. And that's about the same for somebody who doesn't own the pen or if it's one of your own.
I would think there's people at CodePen that have only ever seen this view. Mm-hmm. Because the rest of the views are, they're just useful for specific things, but this is the editor view is kind of the heart and soul of CodePen, and that's that. There is this particular view called Details View that it's not that you can't see the code, but it's in this embed up here. So if by default, it's not there. It doesn't mean that you can't see the code, but it's a little bit more minimized. And the idea is that, it kind of focuses on the result of what you've built a bit more. And please do not share.
Do we need to stop the recording here?
Somebody else has been. Sorry. Whatever. But it's going to have the title bigger. If you want to have something to say about your pen, you have this big chunk of Markdown where you can do that. In fact, is there an edit?
You can't edit it from this view anymore. There were some issues with that. It was easier to.
We'll fix it. Don't worry. But whatever you write in here, if I were to write header 1, this is a cool thing, and more code and backticks and all that, I have slider, whatever, I can change stuff. And then when I view that in Details View, then people will be able to see that. This is a view where you have more opportunity to talk about what your pen is, and you may share it on purpose in that view because it highlights what you've built and what you've said about what you've built in a way that the editor view doesn't really do. Not to mention, who's loved it, how many views, all the social features and sharing features are more, kind of present more clearly here.
And the license as well.
The license, indeed. Open source if it's a public pen. What's kind of an interesting thing about Details View is that it's the same thing as the pop-out preview. Mm-hmm. So if you click that and you open it up and you see this, and doesn't that look familiar? This is basically a modalized and, what do you call this, pagination-friendly version of Details View.
Yeah, and you can also see it from the editor view itself. There's a little comments button in the bottom left that you can click, and if you're not the owner of the pen, you can still see this, and you can add a comment right there as you're looking at the code and everything.
Yeah.
And you can see other discussion that's been happening around it.
I like it. I like it. What is with me? Getting the spaces wrong. Sorry, people. Never mind this. This is just an admin-facing star. That's how we pick pens as fancy people that we are, as Team CodePen. And it's warning us that this is a fork, which doesn't make it unpickable, but it's just a little extra warning that maybe you want to pick the one that's not a fork, you know? That's that. So that's details view. The next one is full page view. Let's take a look. Just go to it and see what it is.
This one,
that's
essentially,
all there is to it.
Yeah, minimal CodePen UI. This is kind of great to put the focus on the preview and make sure that, like it's for sharing on social or whatever. Like if you're sharing some kind of tool, you want the most space possible for being able to see those.
And it's restriction free, you know. You share, especially if you're sharing with somebody that may not really care that much about the code. You're like, look at this thing that I built. They're more interested in the thing that you built, not the code behind it. This is a nice way to do it. It has the header up here, so it has the title of it, your name, so you're getting credit for it, but there's opportunity for other people to engage with it and hop around to different views or pin it or whatever. If they're logged in users, their world of CodePen comes along for the ride. This is kind of double duty up here. This is nice to have because it's showing you that it's on CodePen and who built it and what the title is, all that. But it also means that it's clearly like a CodePen thing. So if you make like a login form or something and send it out, it's going to look like CodePen, not that site. Like it's a little bit of abuse protection. This is a safer thing. And this is iframed down here too. So there's some restrictions that come along with full page view. It's meant to be what it is. It's designed that way on purpose so that it's kind of sharing friendly, but also kind of like has abuse protection. And because of that, it's not restricted. Even if you're a free user, you can still use full page view. That's that. Full page view, very useful. What's the difference between full page view and debug view? Let me click that.
Well, this is traditionally a source of confusion for people, but debug mode doesn't specifically call up errors or anything like that. But what it does is it is only your rendered code. So everything that's been compiled and put together in the pin, just in the page right there. So there's not an iframe wrapping around it. There's no live refreshing or anything like that injected by us. So it's really great for debugging. You can inspect elements really easily because they're just directly there in the body. It's not wrapped in an iframe. And your console is also going to be in that context as well. So you can, query selector all and do all of that without having to select the iframe specifically.
Boom, boom, boom. Yeah, very useful in that way. And that this is a little bit more restricted because there's no header, because there's no iframe, because there's no protection at all. It means you got to be logged in to use it. If you're a free user, meaning if you send this URL out on Twitter, it's probably not going to work for most of the people that click on it. They'll be asked to log in to see it and such, unless you're pro. So that's a pro feature, is that it does not, it doesn't have that login restriction for using it, which seems like a silly little pro feature, but if you need it, you need it. It's really nice. Now I could open this in browser stack or cross-browser testing or on my phone or on my iPad or whatever, and it'll just come right up with no restrictions. So this view is, not that we should be teaching people this, but I'll just say it like a little more exploitable. But generally that pro barrier is enough to kind of fight the bad guys for the most part. So that's that. Debug view.
It's also worth noting that is the last saved version of the pin. It's not live refreshed. If you're making changes, you have to save them to see that in the debug mode, so that
save them and then go to debug menu and refresh. So that's useful. Maybe we should go right to live view then. Oh, look, it's the next one in the list. Look at how similar looking it's going to be to debug view. It's basically the same thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
But notably, let's, for those of you who know what you're looking at here, let me look in here. Oh, look, an iframe, if I were to write this document.query selector all details, it's not going to find any because the context is wrong. It's still like possible to do. I'd have to change my context here to, I don't even know. Do we name it well?
The slug there.
There we go. Then run it again. Now I've changed my context and it's going to find it. But there's no way for us to programmatically change that for you. You're going to have to do that every single time this page refreshes. It's just less useful than Debug View is, but it has a particular superpower, doesn't it?
Yes. Because that live refreshes anytime you change, or if you have auto-updating preview off and click the run button, it'll refresh that. So this is something that you could open up on your phone. You could open up in multiple browsers. You could open up at multiple sizes, and those changes are just gonna propagate across all of them. There's the great video that you made many years ago with all your devices set up, and you whoosh the changes across. Yeah,
I love whooshing. Yeah, I can't. Whoosh! Oh, okay. Whoosh! I love it. Really fun. It is really useful. You know, one of the big use cases for this is when people say, oh, I got this big monitor. I wish you could just like detach this so that I can maximize these. Well, that's all you have to do. Just close the preview. Now you have these full page things, and you know, you can maximize these too. Let's see, maximize CSS editor. Now I have this, you know, this big full browser pane thing for my CSS, and the changes I make here, I can move this window anywhere. It's basically detaching the preview is what Live View. Live View, though, notably is Pro.
Yes.
It's a Pro feature of CodePen, so you just don't get to use it at all if you're free. Sorry about that, but if you upgrade, you got it.
And we even have a nice little shortcut button down there right next to delete. That's probably
indeed
troublesome.
That does double duty as well. So let's say you have the preview open. You can click that. It's going to make a new tab for your live view. And by the time you come back, you'll see that it's minimized the preview for you. The point of that pop out is to do the splitting. So very useful. Love live view. Tremendous pro feature, I think. Use it all the time. This episode, I should say, is sponsored by WooCommerce, which is if you run a WordPress site. It's a plugin for your Word. Did you say Woo?
That's great. Woo. I'm going for Woo.
Woo. If you run a WordPress site, you know, it's a plugin that you can install that does all the e-commerce for you. And it's such a huge plugin, not like scary huge, just like the possibilities are huge and the usage of it is huge. It's just WordPress is already this pretty nice CMS for doing everything that you need to do CMS wise. And it's so nice to be able to like just add e-commerce capabilities to that and know that it's just kind of tightly woven, integrated into what WordPress already does. And it just gets more and more true every day as both of those technologies evolve. For example, they got really nice Gutenberg blocks. So you're building a page and want to focus a product on there. You just like make the block and do that. Not just talking about it, I use it. For example, the store on CSS Tricks, where you can buy things like this cool hoodie that I designed and threw up a thing on there. When you buy this and add it to your cart and check out and do all that stuff, we sell these cool posters too. That this is all powered by WooCommerce, and it just does great for us. It's just not something that requires tons of maintenance or tons of time. It just works. People get nice emails. The orders are fulfilled, and it's just a very nice e-commerce system that after setting up, which didn't take that much effort, just works great for us. So thanks WooCommerce. It's you do the job well. Appreciate it. There's more views to talk about here, isn't there? I think, are all the rest of them pro?
Yes,
I'm afraid they are, people. The views of CodePen are dominated by pro features indeed. What's this next one all about? I feel like I've joked in the past that Stephen might be our number one user of this particular view.
Yes, Collab Mode is amazing. This is a view that allows you to make live changes with somebody else.
You were already in there. Hilarious.
Yeah,
I can see the
out, ready to go. So I can change borders. I can make everything star color red, important. All great changes.
I typed nothing. I did not touch my keyboard when I did that. But yeah, what you're looking at is my computer. So that's the magic of Collab Mode. I mean, you can think of Google Docs and how multiple people can be working at the same time in there. More and more apps have this as kind of a native feature. On CodePen, to do that, you open Change View and you go to Collab Mode, and you'll see the URL has Collab in it. Grab that and then share it with somebody over text or in your Discord or in your Slack or whatever. Your friends will pop into here, your coworkers or whatever, and you'll be able to work together. Now, you notice I could see Shaw's cursor. He can see mine. I can even see what he selects and what I select. It's a very integrated experience, we'll say. If you need to talk to each other, not through code, you have chat. So that's kind of fun. Good to know that you have that. You get it, right? No need to elaborate forever. A lot of people use this for interviewing people. They're like, let's hop into a Collab Mode session, and they have a little exercise prepared, and they can kind of watch them code. That's kind of was a sleeper hit feature for interviewing people. Kind of clever. But it just works, and it works all day and does what it needs to do. So
can be great for group debugging, streaming, parties, right. All kinds of fun.
Absolutely. We've done group note taking in it before too, because why not? Like turn on Markdown mode in HTML and just like take Markdown notes together. Nice little pro feature. Steven can't save it, but I can save it, because he's made changes. So I'll hit save. Why not? Is this an improvement? I think I literally have this embedded in a blog post. So it better be an improvement. Okay. Let's no, leave it alone. I like it. With the shadows were particularly nice. Yeah. There's another view that's very similar to Collab Mode in that it has real-time features, but is not designed necessarily for everybody to have a cursor. It's more of a one-way trip. I should mention, by the way, that Shaw happens to have an account, so I can see who he is here. But the other person in Collab Mode, they don't even have to have a CodePen account. They can, but if I share this Collab Mode with them, still, they can edit, they can play around. It's totally open. So there's like very few barriers to it. So what's the difference between Collab and Professor then? Which notice the URL is a little different, the coloration is a little different here.
Yeah, it's essentially read or write access. With Professor mode, everybody can see your changes as they happen live. So if I change over to the Professor URL as you're in there, I can see those changes, and Chris can see that I'm watching. See, there's one student watching in the bottom there. But this makes it great for teaching in particular, so that they can kind of look at the code themselves and see the live changes happening, and they can see it with their own font sizes and
notably
and
they won't see this. You won't see that I've opened this, right? Because we're not syncing the events that happen in the preview, but it can be kind of nice. Like the student or whoever happens to be watching, you can play around knowing that they're not interfering with anything. I don't see what the students are doing at all. In fact, they could save a fork or whatever they want to do. But the professor, they're just watching me do what I want to do here. So it's kind of voyeuristic. You might say it. I might tweet something and be like, "Hey, watch me do something in Professor mode," and all kinds of people can pile in and watch you do that without interfering with what you're doing. So that's kind of the difference, and it has a different, chat storage. So the people watching you can chat amongst themselves here and all that. Cool. I'm going to save it again just to make sure that our excellent changes to this are in place here.
Pumpkin accordion.
Really just one more view to talk about then. So speaking of, voyeurism, it feels weird to say, but there's this mode that's specifically for you showing other people stuff. But whereas Professor mode is more like showing people things virtually, probably. Presentation mode is, in a sense, kind of designed for like IRL, like in real life kind of situations, right?
Yeah, like if you're connecting your laptop up to a screen, projector, whatever, giving some kind of talk or presentation, keyword there. This simplifies the UI. Like we take away a lot of the Chrome, so that it's just the essentials. You can easily change your themes. You can still use the console. There's even those nice, the display URL there. So if you wanted to share your demo with the audience, that they can easily type that in. You can still use assets and change like the layout there. We've got those toggles in the bottom. So if you need to change around,
if this was too small, we could always do this too, right?
Yeah.
You can shrink things. Just some extra view controls that you don't have in the normal editor with the space maximized, right? And these changes that I've made are temporary. It's now if I go back to the editor, it's not going to be in light mode, but I'll tell you what, every projector I've ever projected on in my entire life as a presenter who's spoken at a heck of a bunch of conferences, light mode. I prefer dark mode all day long on my computer, but it never projects particularly well. Light mode projects way better. So this is kind of the overhead projector mode in a way.
And you always want a bigger font size than you would think.
Right. Like that. That's not going to project well.
No, you probably can't even read that in this video right now.
Yeah. So it's like, why did we put it in the settings? Well, it depends, everything depends, but you can always, all these modes are friendly to zooming too, but not always forever. There's limits to what zooming can do. So it's kind of nice to have some control over, temporarily what you're showing on an overhead projector. Again, just a little thing, but it just happens to be a nice little pro feature. If you need it, you need it. Upgrade and grab it.
It's great for recording too. Like if you're doing a screencast kind of thing and want to show off some code, this way all that typical CodePen UI is out of the way, and you can just kind of record the whole,
it is.
Whole
you can record whatever you want, but Steven's 100% right. Oh, look at how it retained my code folding when I came back to this view. What a nice feature. Thanks, CodePen, for being so UX driven.
Yes. Oh, and with presentation mode, all the keyboard shortcuts are still available, so you can Command S to save. There's no save button visible there.
There's no obvious way to get back, but you got here with a click, so the back button will kind of do the trick there. Otherwise, URL hacking these views is totally possible too. Use CodePen for long enough, you'll remember what all these are. I think a lot of people just to get to the views, just URL hack it real quick anyway. If you forget what they are, the little question marks will shoot you over to the docs that explain what they are. Look at that fancy GIF we made for Collab Mode a while back. Look at that. Look at those cursors fly. That was before we would tell you who is on that cursor, though, didn't it? Remember when we built that? That was before.
I wasn't even on board yet. I just sent you the idea, and then you collabed with me to get that going. That was fun.
Yeah, we'll have to update this GIF someday. All right, everybody. Thanks for watching CodePen Radio on the TV. Bye.